Welcome back to Behind the Print podcast, where we feature industry leaders and uncover the creative minds and their businesses within the world of professional printing. Our mission is to provide you with inspiring, actionable resources that elevate your business projects and accelerate your journey to excellence in profit and print. Today's episode is Stopping PTSD Before It Starts, Yoga for First Responders. And I'm here today with the president of Yoga for First Responders, Eric Brenneman.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm excited to be here. Honestly, we are so excited and humbled to have you guys ask us to be on the show. So truly grateful.
Oh, well, we're so excited to have you and just explore a little bit more about what your business does and about how they use print. So,
Yeah.
who do you guys serve at Yoga for First Responders, and what roles or communities are you most focused on supporting?
Yeah, good question. So, as the name implies, we support first responders. We try to not get too creative with the naming. Sometimes businesses can get a little bit out there and it's like, what do you
Right.
do? And so we wanted to be very specific. And so
Yeah.
we target and work with first responders. And we have a broad definition of first responder because a lot of people immediately think of law enforcement and fire service.
Yeah.
But there are so many more folks. And I'm a former firefighter. And so the way that we defined the spectrum of first responders is everybody that would be involved in the 911 chain for like a CPR, for example. And so it runs from the dispatchers because they're the ones to take the call, and they often get forgotten about as a first responder, but they have a terrible job, quite frankly, that I would never want to do. To obviously law enforcement, fire service are going to respond to that. EMS agencies with their paramedics and EMTs, and then they do the transports and they're going to drop the patient off in the emergency department. So we do bleed over into medical professionals a little bit with emergency department nurses, doctors, things like that. But that's our group that we work with. And then I should note that we do also work with active duty military personnel across the country because this broadens the spectrum, but we actually believe that there are countries' first responders and they're on the front lines as well. So that's the spectrum of who we serve. And honestly, Zoe, we work coast to coast, border to border. So we have
Wow.
partnerships with folks from like 3 weeks ago, I was in Medford, Oregon, working with the sheriff's office in the far northwest corner of the country, came home for the weekend, and then flew to Miami-Dade Fire Rescue for a presentation Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So literally the opposite ends of the spectrum for the entire country and everywhere in between. So it's a super cool organization.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really busy getting that mission out there, but you're addressing a unique and critical need that is just amazing.
Yeah. So, one of the little known things about folks in public safety is everybody hears about when a firefighter dies in the line of duty or when an officer dies in the line of duty. But what people don't realize is the military has done a better job of marketing this, quite frankly, because if we talk about mental health in the military, everybody knows to pull out the number 22 a day. Now, there's a lot of debate on how accurate that number is. In fact, most argue that it's higher than 22 veterans a day are unfortunately dying by their own hand. But in the public safety world, the mental health crisis persists there as well for a lot of the same reasons. I mean, folks that are doing
Right.
these jobs are seeing a lot of death and destruction and trauma day in and day out. And so the statistics bear out, and these are considered conservative, that first responders are actually 300 to 400% likely, so 3 to 4 times more likely to die by suicide than they are to die in the line of duty. And so
Wow.
we are losing a ton of first responders day in and day out to a mental health crisis that just is not being talked about enough at this point.
Right. It's really invisible. And so, how does your approach, rooted in traditional yoga but tailored for
Yeah.
first responders, help solve these problems? Can you walk us through what that looks like in
Yeah.
action?
For sure. Because, yeah, I mean, you say the word yoga and first responders, and first you're going to get a lot of people rolling their eyes like, I'm not going to do yoga. I don't have the right body. I can't stretch. And that's what people think about too, like when they're thinking about whether they're going to approach yoga in their own lives, right?
Right.
But what we do is, so a lot of the branding and marketing of yoga, quite frankly, is towards women who have disposable income that want to look good in Lululemon pants. I mean, let's be honest. And I say this every day. And so if you want to come after me, that's fine. Like that's part of my sales pitch because the men and women that we work with are not that person, but they feel completely isolated from yoga because of that branding, quite frankly.
Right. Yeah.
And so we actually take it back to truly traditional yoga. Our founder, Olivia Mead, actually did her 500-hour yoga training certification in Rishikesh, India. So we can talk about like true lineage of our practice and where it came from, which
Right.
for those that practice martial arts, it's very similar. Like martial artists know the lineage of their art form. And so we bring that concept back into the yoga tradition. And so we've taken traditional hatha yoga, made it job specific and culturally informed, and trauma informed. And so we've done some things because of the population that we serve. So for example, we don't use the traditional language of yoga of Sanskrit. So I'd never use that languaging in my class. And so you'll hear one word that everybody in the whole wide world knows of Sanskrit is namaste, or the second word is shavasana, because they're all like, oh, that's the part where you sleep at the end, right? And so those are the two Sanskrit words everybody knows, but we don't even use those just because we don't have to. And so we don't use that. We don't use music in our classes because coming from the firehouse, I'll be honest, there were certain songs that would pop on the radio and we're like, oh, shoot, we're going to get a code today. It was just kind of this crazy, like,
Intuition.
intuition, yeah, right? Or superstition, like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And so we don't play music because if that song were to come up on the playlist, then all of our students are immediately thinking about that. We don't use essential oils. A lot of people are like, oh, lavender and that kind of stuff, but we don't use those in our classes because, again, being trauma informed, lavender smells good until that's where the car accident where some people perished was in a lavender bush, and then lavender doesn't smell so good anymore. And so these are some of the kind of the realities that we have to address and think about as we approach the population that we work with.
Totally.
And so taking it a step further into our actual protocol that we teach. And so while we're rooted in traditional hatha yoga, we do have a secret sauce, right? Like any good business does, but we share it publicly. So maybe that's our downfall. I don't know. But here's what we do. So we start with true traditional breath work. So if we can affect how we breathe, research and science shows that affects our thoughts and it affects our physiology, such as our heart rate. So first and foremost, we teach our first responders how to breathe better because in high stress incidents on the job, while they're working, they're going to be in an elevated stress response. And so I want to give them the tools to be able to regulate that stress response so they can perform better, make better decisions under stress on the job,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? We use physical drills. So these are what people often think of as yoga, as the physical aspect of it. It actually has very specific benefits the way we teach it. But in fact, the most difficult position, and I say this all the time, that I will ever teach my first responders is to stand still, stand completely still and breathe. That's it. Because if we start to get into the quote unquote harder, typically physical postures, we actually can kind of get out of our own mind. But if I were just standing still and breathing, your mind can wander, it can do evil things to you. And that's why most of us fidget or move around or sway back and forth, is because the mind is reflecting what's actually happening in the mind. The body is reflecting, what's happening in the mind. And so if there's a lot of movement in the mind, there's a lot of movement in the body. So stand still and breathe is the hardest thing I ever teach my first responders to do, without a doubt. But we do layer in some of the physical drills because I want to put them actually into a stress-induced state. That's the whole point of the physical drills. And so if I put them into a little bit of a stress-activated state, I then coach them to layer back in the breathing that I taught them to start with. So the next time their body encounters stress, it actually defaults back to proper diaphragmatic breathing. So instead of spinning up and spinning out of control, they're already trained to regulate their nervous system under
Right.
stress. So that's where we can kind of start to talk about the proactive training aspect of it. The last part of our protocol is what we call neurological reset. I'm going to use that word again. This is the shavasana at the end. But if you've ever taken a yoga class at a studio, instead of just saying like, hey, take 3 minutes to lay there being in space by yourself, like, good luck, God bless. Like if you tell a first responder to do that, their mind will be all over the place and they'll be worried about other stuff. And so we actually teach single point of focus meditation in that moment. So it's not to shut the mind down, but it's rather how to control the mind so it can focus on one thing rather than all of the things. And that's where mindfulness practices, again, in the literature, have often been equated with helping alleviate post-traumatic stress because it helps stop the triggers. Like if they start going down ruminative thought processes, if they have a tool that can bring them back into the present moment, such as a mindfulness practice, it actually interrupts that trigger. And so that's what we teach them. We give them single point of focus meditation practices. And then here's the secret sauce. So all of that is a true yoga class. Like when you look at what we're doing, we teach very specifically for them. So we're using words that they hear as far as like firearms training if they're law enforcement, or awkward working positions if they're firefighters, or air management for the packs on their backs. But the secret sauce is actually that from day one, we've worked with licensed psychologists and clinical social workers. And so we actually introduce a bit of cognitive behavioral therapy into our yoga classes. And so we know that the breath affects the brain waves and the physiology, but so do our thoughts. Like our thoughts, if we start to think about the ruminative thoughts of a bad experience in the past, it's going to pull our physiology along with it. And we all know this. Like if you start to think about, oh my God, this test I have tomorrow, or what are my kids doing at school, or they're getting in trouble, or things like that, like you can feel your heart rate go up. You can feel your breath shorten. We know that our mind directs our physiology. And so what we do in our classes is while we have them in a stress-induced state, we start to coach them that this is a challenge and not a threat. And those two words are very, very critical and very, very specific because they actually change the neurobiology. They literally change the neurochemistry that's happening inside of our body. So our body will default to a threat response because that's our survival mechanism, which actually shows indices of post-traumatic stress. But if we can change that same perception of the moment to a challenge response, like I'm going to rise to the occasion, or I'm going to meet this head on as a challenge and not as a threat. And remember, threat is the default, so it does take conscious thought. Then research actually shows that we can increase a neurosteroid called DHEA and therefore shift the needle towards post-traumatic growth.
Wow.
Truly that simple.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do. So while they're under stress, we rewire the brain to think of stress as a challenge and not a thought. We teach them to breathe properly rather than get activated with their breathing. And so that's where we become a preventative tool. And that's why I called this episode the way it is. We've done clinical research on that protocol specifically. It's in the American Psychology Journal, and we are now listed as a preventative tool for post-traumatic stress in first responders.
Wow, that is just so cool.
So cool. And I wish that, like, and this is why I'm so honored to have this experience, because we just need to get the word out. Like, we need to get the word out because there's a practical application that's tactical that people can literally learn today. Like, I can teach some of this stuff today on the episode. And if people put it into play, you're literally changing your breath, changing your mind, and so therefore pushing towards post-traumatic growth. It's in the literature. It's awesome. It's so cool.
That is so interesting. And I love how you've really catered to this industry, like for first responders, because I have parents who are in the military, so I understand where their mindset comes from when they hear the word yoga or hear things like that. And just to cater to them in that aspect and use words that are not so frightening and just really helpful to the language that they speak is setting you worlds apart from other preventative causes like this, and even just long-term therapy or help like that. So I'm curious, are there any other wellness programs that are out there like this?
There are a couple, and honestly, they all went through our Train the Trainer program. So unfortunately, we built some of our competitors out there, but that's okay because I mean, it is business. At the end of the day, I would love to be the monopoly in the world, but I also realize that's not the case. Just like you guys are not the only print shop in the world, we have to differentiate, right? I mean, we have to differentiate ourselves and show why we do what we do and how we do it differently. But what I will say, Zoe, is that we have so much experience. I mean, we just crossed the threshold of working with our 100,000th public safety professional. So we've touched 100,000 public safety professionals across the country. We've been around for 10 years. And as crazy as it sounds, like people are buying into it because of all the things that you just said.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, we're mandated training in like the U.S. Marshal Service. We're mandated training for the United States Secret Service Uniform Division. We're mandated training for like the U.S. Capitol Police. We're mandated training for Chicago Police Department. And I'm pulling out a lot of law enforcement for a really specific reason because honestly, we hear a lot so prior to 2020, most of our customer base was fire service. We were probably
Mhm.
75% fire, 25% law enforcement, and mix of others. After 2020, citizenry demanded that policing change in America, like that we take better care of our police officers, that our police officers take better care of us citizens.
Yeah.
And so now our partnership base is 80% law enforcement. And so I'm so stinking proud of that as a former firefighter. The fact that like our law enforcement community, while they're still under fire in much of the country, is working to get better. Like, honestly, folks, like we are in those agencies doing the work with them to help them regulate their minds, bodies, and nervous systems. And to me, that makes me extremely proud of the work that we do, that we can be at that forefront of truly cultural change, like true cultural
Totally.
change. And it's amazing. And the men and women behind the uniform that we're working with, they're putting in the work. Like they're doing the work. And that's amazing. I've got a veteran, former Air Force, that's been coming into our shop here. So we have our headquarters are in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We stream live classes from here. But if people want to come in, then they can join us live and we just kind of do a hybrid class. We do
That's
live
cool.
classes every Tuesday and Thursday morning. It's on our website. There's a calendar link. It's like a Google Meets link. So if you want to try it, you just go to that, hit the link, and you can take a free yoga class every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 9:30 Mountain Time, right?
So
So
cool.
no cost, no barrier to entry, just give it a shot. And this guy, Josh, he's been coming in for about every Tuesday and Thursday. I mean, minus a few here or there, but truly consistently for the better part of 6 to 8 months at this point. And he feels better in his body. He'll fully admit that his intrusive thoughts have gone away, or not always, but he knows how to
Right.
manage them and mitigate them now. He'll fully admit that he's gone from smoking multiple packs of cigarettes a day and cutting it in half since just getting control of his mind, body, and nervous system. And then now he's one of our trainers. Like he just went through our train the trainer program, and now he's out in the world teaching this. So he went from thinking yoga was BS to giving it a shot to now teaching this like to other veterans and other folks that are in his circle. But to your point, it just shows because we know the language, we know these people, they feel safe, they feel welcome, they feel seen, and that's truly the essence of meeting somebody where they're at. And so, yeah, I would love to introduce your parents to it.
Totally. I will definitely show them this episode and I bet they will come to your class.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
I think it's so interesting how you mentioned too on just like the idea of exponentially growing emotionally intelligence
Hmm.
through this just one class a week or Tuesdays
Right.
and Thursdays a week because the effect that we'll have on a community as a whole in let's say 50 years or 100 years from now, like oh my goodness, I can almost visualize what life will be like for these people, and it's so much easier, it's gentler
Yeah.
and more filled with grace. And you mentioned reaching over 100,000 public safety professionals.
Right.
That's huge. Like,
Right.
would you say that's the biggest milestone for the organization so far?
Oh, by far. 100, yes, like without a doubt. Like, I mean, there's not many organizations out there that can say they've touched 100,000 people in any industry. And so
No,
the fact that this small but mighty organization has been able to touch that many lives
so
and the ripple
quickly.
effect of that is it's quite frankly, it's unquantifiable.
Yeah.
And to your point, if I'll share a story of a law enforcement officer in Colorado. So this is an amazing man. Like he's a good guy. He's married, has a beautiful kids. Like I don't know him super well, but he comes with great accolades. The community loves him. Like he's just a stand-up guy. His name's David. He went through part of our research study. Like he was one of our participants in the research study. So a lot of like people that obviously are being studied have to give a lot of testimonials and feedback and observations and things like that. And so one of the things that he fully admitted is that his partner, his wife, fully admitted that he was more present at home and quite frankly, a better partner. So it starts there, like talk about family dynamics and then how that impacts their kids. But to your point
It's
of like,
huge.
it is. And then, but to your point about like the ripple effect outside of that, like that's critical. But he had a call where he had a teenage girl. who was having an unfortunate emotional episode and was destroying the house. And the parents couldn't get it under control. And so they called 911. And I mean, unfortunately, that's a very common occurrence across the country, happens tens of thousands of times, arguably a day. And in those moments, there are certain rules that agencies have to follow. Like, for example, in the state of Colorado, the rule is that girl, because she was of a certain age, had to leave the house. Like, she couldn't stay there. That's just the way it is. Even if things calm down once police show up and that kind of stuff, she still has to leave.
Right.
Now, historically, the way that David would have interacted with this kid is that he would have gone in, tried to talk her down. If doesn't get talked down, she ends up getting put in handcuffs and carried out of the house, basically, because she has to go. And
Right.
you can imagine what everybody involved in that scene then thinks of law enforcement for the rest of their lives. Like, she will have that moment imprinted on the rest of her life, that this cop came into my house and carried me out. And that just, I mean, you can see how that perpetuates down the line.
Yeah.
But because we've given training tools on breath regulation, nervous system regulation, nobody was in danger in this situation. And so he took the moment to literally do the training that we trained him on with this person, with this girl, teenage girl, and helps her regulate her nervous system through breath work and mindfulness training on the spot. On the spot.
Oh.
Now she still has to leave. Like, that's the
Right.
rules. But he gets her nervous system regulated. They have a conversation with it. She walks out of the house on her own with him, still has to leave with the police officer, but see how different the dynamics are and how that changes the outcome of that family's view of law enforcement for the rest of their lives because of his actions and his ability to take the tools that we trained him and apply it in the field. Like, that's the ripple effect. That's the unquantifiable that we will never know the impact that we have, which is amazing, quite frankly.
I totally agree with you. And it'll be interesting to see the tipping point for law enforcement in that area to implement that into their just daily calls, daily, I don't want to say like emergencies, but that's what they
Yeah.
have. They have emergencies that they take care of. And I totally hear where you're coming from, where it's like, this is what has to be done, and this is the law. So we got to do this and this and this, and she's got to go. So that's just really cool how he approached that, and was probably setting a really cool example for other people who were on the call or just at the house that day.
Right.
And that's just really, really inspirational. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. And so we are working in different states to get our training certified, accredited, technically, I guess is the
Yeah.
right word, by those different states for both fire service and law enforcement to be accredited so they can use it as mandated health and wellness training. Because every state mandates health and wellness training for public safety. And a lot of it is clinicians coming in and talking about like the talk therapy type stuff. But if we can position ourselves to also fit check the box, quite frankly, of those mandated health and wellness hours,
Right.
and give these practical tools they can use on the spot, on the job, and then relay it out to the folks that they're interacting with on a day-to-day basis. Like, yeah, that's a big, big, big deal. And so we're making progress there, one step at a
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that's your biggest obstacle that you guys are facing right now?
Our biggest obstacle, this is going to sound crazy, is the four-letter word yoga. Because of all of the misconceptions that I said at the beginning,
Right.
and that's the misconceptions that people bring into this conversation. And why, when you're like, that's why I chose the title I did, because people are gonna be like, there's no way we can prevent PTSD with yoga, because I know what yoga is, and it's not that. And so,
Right.
the joke I make is that yoga is the only four-letter word a firefighter or a cop won't say. But so that is the biggest hurdle, is truly that four-letter word yoga. And so we're in business, a lot of people are like, well, then just change the name, right? Obviously, that's the next logical solution. Just change the name. But here's the thing, is that people are intuitively smart. People are smart. And so if we say, hey, we're going to do this super awesome tactical train, like if we named it super awesome black belt tactical training and pull out all the buzzwords and, on down the line, they'll be like, okay, cool, sign me up, dude. And then they come in and I teach them a yoga class. They're going to be like, what the heck?
What
I didn't
is
sign up
this?
for a yoga class. I signed up for that super cool tactical black belt, whatever it
Ninja
was. I'm like,
time.
yeah, right. And so I either have to fight the fight up front or fight the fight on the back end. And
Right.
so I'd rather fight the fight up front. And it's through conversations like this where we can change. Quite frankly, we're working to change a stigma too,
Totally.
about that. And so that The four-letter word yoga is by far my biggest obstacle in business.
Mm, so cool. I love that. That's so interesting. So how do you guys use print?
Seriously, Zoe, we have tried so many different things and we keep going back to print. Well, because we're a very small business. And so we have to be very, very cost conscious, right? Like
Right.
whether we like it or not, the lights have to stay on and food has to get put on the table for the people inside of our organization. And so we started as a what we call a black and white organization, literally like black and white PowerPoint slides on the board 10 years ago, and people just like burning out through their pencils trying to take notes as fast as they could in our training that we do with them. And then we built our first manual, and it was a black and white era manual, and it was just garbage, quite frankly. I mean, I'll say that about my own organization. Like, it was basically a picture of the slide with like 5 lines next to it, like typical manuals are. Okay,
Right.
here's the slide. Now write all of the notes in those like 5 little lines next to it, like, you know. And then we went through our Wonder Vision era and became our now in true color version of ourselves. And we have gorgeous manuals. So we partnered with a adult learning instructional design coordinator and said,
Ooh,
this is what we teach. And we literally tore everything down to the studs, kept all of the concepts, but then rebuilt it back up. So it's truly beneficial for adult learning now. And part of that process was building out both a resource manual and an instructor's manual. So the resource manual is just a quick book that people can look at to do exactly what it says, reference things that we teach after they're already certified. So it's just that book that they take with them and just gives them like, oh yeah, these are the high level things that I'm supposed to remember. These are some pictures and notes. But our Train the Trainer, our instructor's school manual has blossomed into a 360 page manual. Like
wow.
you think about folks that have done like online trainings or hell, even a college class. Like some of the college books you're reading are not even 360 pages. And
No.
we've built out this 360-page manual. And it's no longer just a picture of the slide and that. It's truly like we take all of the pertinent information and it's like we do fill in the blanks, we do reflective time. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful book. But as one could expect, it's a very expensive book. And so we printed it out. We're very proud of this. Like whenever we pitch our organization to people, we say, look at the
Yeah.
work that we put into it and we show them this manual because it knocks people's socks off. They're like,
Right.
holy, this is an amazing tool that you guys give. And so that's where our relation started with these manuals and these resource books. And then I'll be honest, we actually tried to go to a digital route because it was 2023, 2024, somewhere in there. We're like, it's 2023, 2024. What if we tried to put this manual into a tablet version so that the students could use tablets and take their notes on instead? So we could just you ship
Typed it
tablets
in.
around, type it in.
Yeah.
Zoe, the learning experience for the students went through the floor. It was terrible. It was terrible. So trying to switch this wonderful printed manual into a digital product, the learning experience was awful for our students.
Oh,
They just got
interesting.
distracted. They were not taking notes as well because it wasn't as easy. And so, yes, here we are in 2025, and we're still printing our manuals because we're gone back to print and we're all in on print because the experience of our student, which is ultimately our goal, is so much better. Is so much better than having like it digitally on a tablet. And so I wouldn't be doing you guys service if I didn't say we tried to try a digital area and we came back because print is better. And so that's my pitch for those that are listening to this is like, if you're thinking about going digitally, take this beat because that's our experience. Like having gone to digital, just yeah, the learning experience and our goals and our outcomes were not as successful.
It is so interesting coming from a print industry perspective and a marketing perspective because you would think
Sure.
that advertisements and things online would be, oh, get your attention for this and keep you focused or whatever. But then when it comes down to it, the your eyes just react so much better to things that physically exist. And the distractions that you mentioned are something that I personally struggle with. I open my
Yeah.
phone for one thing and five more things come up, and I close my phone, and the one thing I went on it for is not done. I'm like,
Yeah,
what just
exactly. Totally.
happened?
Totally. And to your point, like we go to trade shows and conferences or just even out in the community. Like we have the digital business cards on our phone, like everybody does anymore, because that's an easy way to share contact information.
Right.
But if it's critical information, we put it on postcards. Like we're not, none of us, none of my team carries business cards. They have the digital business cards, so they can quickly grab it, contact information. But we equip all of our people in the field with, again, tangible printed tactile things that somebody has to make a decision with of like, oh, I'm going to read this. And even if they throw it away, it's still in their hands. Like for a moment, it's in their hands and they can't ignore what's on the card, well, even if they're walking to the garbage can to throw it away.
Totally.
And so we still find old fashioned, like I work for another company too, a technology company. They've gotten rid of all of our paper collateral for our conferences and stuff. And I'll tell you, it's terrible again because people want that tangible, tactile thing. And so we equip our people that are going to conferences and stuff with in postcard size because you can put a little bit more information on it. It's a perfect
So
handout, a
smart.
perfect giveaway. And then honestly, out of all of the things that we do, I'm happy that this was my brainchild, quite frankly. But it's a postcard that has our mission statement on one side. It's just a black and white postcard. And again, it's again the tactile piece of it. Black and white postcard, mission statement on one side. On the back side are 6 different breathing techniques that people can use. It gives them the reason why they would do that breathing technique, and then 3-step instructions on how to do it. And there's 6 of those. So given 6 different scenarios in your life, you now have a very quick breath work to do in that moment.
Right.
And then it has our contact information and a QR code to push back to some of our online and digital stuff. But at conferences, I have police chiefs and fire chiefs taking stacks of the postcards because they're going to put them in the visors of the patrol cars and in the rigs and in the ambulances and that kind of stuff. Again, because it's there, it's tangible. So from a marketing standpoint, it's not something that's loaded on their computer in their car or the computer in the fire truck that they have to think about to go get. It's literally like facing them, like, oh, look at that. There's that card with those breathwork patterns. And so that is by far the resource that we get calls for. Hey, I need another batch of those postcards to put in my patrol cars, or I'm going to pass these out for X, Y, or Z. Like it's that. So again, printing in 2025 is arguably making the biggest impact for our organization.
Wow, that's mind blowing because whenever I have a piece of print that I'm reading and it has helpful techniques or things to learn about or things that I can use daily, it's something that really sticks in my brain. And so
Yeah.
knowing that all of those cops and they just have them right in their visor where they can reach out, use them at any time, that's like really cool. Cause I know if I were a cop working that, I would be like looking at that, I'd be like
Totally.
taking it home, putting it back, and then thinking about it when I go home. Like,
Right.
oh, these are things that I can totally use to help me. That's just really
Yeah.
cool.
And since it's a postcard in the car, nobody has to know about it. So they don't
Right.
have to go out and feel like they're weak or broken or anything like all of those stigma words too.
Mm-hmm.
Like then even if they don't buy into it, like in the heat of the moment, they'll be like, oh, that I'll give that a try. Like I've got nothing else. I'll give this a shot, and they'll pull it out and just reference it. And so yeah, so it's private, it's in their own patrol car or even in the driveway before they go in to interact with their family after a hard day. So it's one of those like super easy, no-brainer things. And
Yeah.
then obviously from a cost standpoint for us, a postcard, once you start printing them in the thousands, becomes negligible. I mean, honestly, there's still a cost to it, but the cost drops so far that we can then charge them a little bit of money. We can put some money in our bank account, but it's still a very valuable resource without extra tons of cost for them. So, yeah, a postcard. Like you think about the power of a postcard. Like there you go. That's your marketing slogan, Zoe. The power of a
Power of a
postcard.
postcard. I'm never going to forget that. That's so cool. And I love how you mentioned privacy too, because with algorithms these days, it's hard to go on YouTube and just search up breathwork techniques for
Totally.
relaxation because then next time you go onto your phone, you're going to have like you're gonna be
Yes.
scrolling through yoga things for forever. And
Right.
that's something that is part of the stigma that people probably have and they just don't want to look that up. They don't want it on their phone, they don't want it in their algorithm. And so having it
Right.
on printed paper is just so cool for this business model. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it really, really is. And so again, it's taking it back to its roots, right? Like
Yeah.
where we started, like traditional health yoga, doing everything on paper. For somebody that does believe in technology, it seems a bit counterintuitive. But I'm also going to argue, make a personal point, take a personal point of privilege here. I do believe the pendulum of technology will swing back at some point, if it hasn't already, because we start to hear people that are now switching back to like dumb phones rather than smartphones and stuff, just to like disconnect a little bit. And so that's something that obviously we're now at the forefront of that shift back away from technology a little bit.
Yes,
So,
that's so cool.
um, yeah, but that's a point of personal privilege. But I think it's pertinent. And for a printing business, everybody says print is dead, but I would argue to the contrary.
That's so interesting. And I love how you said it goes back to your roots of the business, but it's really this business is bringing humans back to their roots. And
Mm.
so that's just, wow, that's so cool. I love
Yeah,
it.
no, I love the way you describe that because that's what we feel. We're not teaching people anything that they didn't already innately have in their body. Like for people, well, I mean, for people that have kids, like they can see their
Yeah.
infants and toddlers doing all of these things that we're teaching people to do.
Mhm.
And so you're correct in that we're just helping humans remember how to human a little bit.
I love it. I love it. That's so cool. So if you had a day free to spend however you like, no yoga, what would you be doing?
Yeah, so that's a valid and interesting question, and one that an exercise that my wife and I do often because in addition to the yoga for first responder stuff, I actually wrote a book on stoicism for public safety, and one of the concepts that actually very much aligns within the yogic principles is just this concept of impermanence, that whether we like it or not, we will not be here forever. None of us escape this thing alive, as they say. Some of us use that to run and be scared, but what we argue is that it should actually really inspire you to live inspired every day. Make sure you're doing what you want to be doing on a daily basis. And so, honestly, Zoe, like if I had no responsibilities and nothing else, true time autonomy and true time freedom, my day looks like I'm waking up a little bit slower without an alarm clock, like just naturally, which would, let's be honest, like let's just stop there.
Yeah, that's saying something within itself.
Right? Exactly. Moving my body in some kind of capacity. I used to love to ride bicycles and be cardiovascularly active because of work and life. That just kind of unfortunately moves down the into the wants, even though it should be, and it should still be a need. I fully admit, everybody listening, it should be a need, but it gets dropped down. So I'd be doing that more actively. And then what have found, though, through exploring all of this stuff after I left the fire service is that I am naturally a creative person. So I find joy in creating things, whether that's recording stuff to give to other people. I love teaching and showing other people how to be the best versions of themselves. Like I really that inspires me. Like I do it oftentimes without pay because it's just like, no, your excitement fills me up if I can teach you to do better. And so that would be a big aspect of my day rather than the nuts and bolts of the job or the business side of the house, if that makes sense, is just sharing the mission and sharing those thoughts. That's what I'd be doing. I'd love to travel. Like money's not an object in this exercise, right?
No, never.
Yeah, obviously I'd love to travel a bit more. Time's not an object here either, because how do you fit all this in? But no, and then just more family time. Because while I love traveling and teaching this stuff, it does take us away from each other quite a bit. So it's nice to be able to would be nice to slow down and be with family a little bit more. But personally, that's why we do make dinner a priority in our household. We always have, is to just, we have a 2.5-year-old girl while this is being recorded. And so we do try to make sure that if nothing else, we all come together for that dinner every day, just to share that moment. Because
That's really nice.
otherwise
I
we're
love that.
ships passing in the dark, as they say.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to get connected in a busy life sometimes, and
Yeah.
life can take you away.
Yeah. So I love that question. And it's something that I hope other people dwell on because it does help you realize what's important in life. And it's not always chasing the next promotion or doing the next thing for work.
Right. That makes me feel so inspired. I dig that. I love it.
Yeah.
So, what is something you hope all of our listeners take away from this episode?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, Prince isn't dead. I'll give you guys the plug first. But honestly, that we've changed some of the mindset around what yoga is. And folks, the tools that we teach, while it is for first responders, can apply to anybody. So we do corporate workshops. We do work with, like, we have the teachers. We live in Albuquerque. We have a group of teachers from our neighboring school district that's having us come in at the beginning of next school year because they're like, by the time you get done with the school year, we're just burned out. Our nervous systems are a wreck from dealing with kids for 9 months. And so can you give us tools that we can like better regulate throughout the school year? Like, yes, absolutely. And so while the name is Yoga for First Responders, I do hope that you're starting to realize that there are simple tools that you can control your mind, body, and nervous system with.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm so excited. I'm going to recommend it for Printing Center USA. I mean, why not? Try it out.
Totally. Free classes every Tuesday and Thursday. I mean, what if all of a sudden everybody in the office is like joining the classes on Tuesday and Thursday?
I
Even
would
if they just
love
do
that.
the breath work portion of it to start with,
Right.
just to get grounded, do a couple minutes of breath work, and then bounce because y'all got meetings and things to do. So,
That would
but
be cool. So
truly,
finally, how can our listeners get involved, possibly become an
yeah.
instructor, learn more, or participate in a class?
Yeah, totally. So our website is yoga4firstresponders.org. You can literally Google search it. We'll be the top one up there. You'll see all of our competitors down the list. But if you search Yoga for First Responders, that will pop up. That's our handle on all socials, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. The website's the main hub of what we do. I'll give my personal email out there as well. I typically don't, but I've been called to do so. And so it's just Eric. It's anybody that can figure out email protocols could figure this out. It's Eric at yoga4firstresponders.org. The kicker with all of this is that the four is spelled out FOR, Yoga for First Responders. Yeah, so hit up our website, hit up our socials. Honestly, give us likes and shares because that's what matters. Because that's beginning to get rid of the stigma of the four-letter word yoga. That's what we ask.
That's awesome. Well, you guys heard them. Check them out on the website. Don't forget to like, share, comment, save. Just help them on their social media, you guys. You guys heard the mission. It's an amazing mission, and getting the word out is going to be our whole goal. And that's a wrap on another episode of Behind the Print podcast. Thanks to our listeners for joining us as we have explored the artistry and innovation of the printing world. Remember, having a strong vision, building the right strategy, and using tools like print to amplify your message will make your brand stand out from the crowd. If you've enjoyed today's episode, stop by PrintingCenterUSA.com and get yourself a free sample pack to share with your fellow business enthusiasts. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying, and remember, there's always more to discover behind the print.